If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 4th, and that his prophetic funeral, in which Trump will sit next to Obama, will be on November 8th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on January 1st, 2025. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this. And it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on November 8th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. All right, welcome. In this video, I will explain the amazing, truly astounding prophetic signs that occurred on September 21st, 2024, that reveal the date on which it is predicted that former President Jimmy Carter will die. All right, this video will talk about how it is relevant to add 5 days to the prophetic signs that revealed adding 5 days that occurred on September 21st to reach September 26th. However, September 26th was yet another step in the trail of signs, prophetic signs that are leading to the predicted date that Jimmy Carter will die on November 4th. I won't explain it here, but one of the signs we received on September 26th was Hurricane Helene, and Hurricane Helene hit Florida, the 27th state. 27 is 3 times 9. 39 days after this will be the 309th day of the calendar year, on the date on which it is predicted that the 39th president will die, Jimmy Carter, on November 4th. Other videos explain why all of that is important. That's not the subject of this video. The subject of this video is the amazing signs that need to be told from God that occurred on September 21st. And this is how it works. It's a big picture of signs. If God were to simply tap someone on the shoulder and say, look, tell the world that such and such is going to happen on such and such date, it wouldn't really give us very much. But it is through these interconnected trails of signs that God is able to tell these amazing stories and thereby communicate essential information and knowledge that everyone needs to know. And that's why you need to watch this video, to learn about the stories that God was telling through the prophetic signs that occurred on September 21st in context of the connections and other prophetic signs that connected to September 21st. It is amazing beyond words, as it always is. The wise person will recognize when the prediction comes to pass that they should watch every minute of every video on this channel, including all of the Carter videos. And so going forward, do not be confused when this video will talk about Carter dying on September 26th. I have just explained how it works. And I have just explained how September 26th was a step in the trail of signs. This video was made prior to September 26th. To begin with, let's just confirm that this email is composed on September 26th. This email is composed on September 22nd, as we can see right here. Prior to September 21st, 2024, we expected that either Jimmy Carter would die or that there would be relevant prophetic signs, because this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of, well, not principle, but it's a big picture of prophetic signs that is interconnected. In fact, the full intended meaning of the prophetic signs, almost all of them, 99% of them, cannot be properly understood without their connections and context to the other signs. And it is through these trails of signs that involve steps in the trail that God is able to tell stories and thereby communicate extremely important information and knowledge, which is the case with this video here and the signs that God presented in relation to Jimmy Carter on September 21st, 2024. In other words, God was pointing to September 21st, 2024 in regards to the death of Jimmy Carter, and God confirmed all of the analysis through the prophetic signs that I'll explain that relate to Jimmy Carter and his death, and therefore all of the analysis for September 21st was 100% correct. Okay, and again, God does this in order to tell the stories you wouldn't otherwise be able to tell if he were to simply tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, tell the world that Jimmy Carter is going to die on this date. What good would that do? It is through these elaborate trails of science, okay, that he tells stories and important information which you must learn, which is what I'll do my best to communicate in this video. So what happened? Okay, so Tito Jackson's death from a heart attack on September 15th was prophetic. He was a member of the Jackson Five, which was made up of members of the Jackson family siblings who grew up on or at 2300 Jackson Street, including his brother MJ, Michael Jackson, and MJ is equal to 23 in simple English gematria. That's because the Antichrist is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. The Jackson 5 member died 2 times 3 days before September 21st, which ends up to 23. And the news that one of the 5 men, as in Jackson 5, but not, this is something else, and the news that one of the 5 men that allege that MJ assaulted them is demanding more money after receiving his final payment of $500,000. MJ died at the age of 50 from a heart attack after having taken a pointy thing from his doctor. Michael Jackson's death at 50 connected with the number 50, as explained in other videos, to the day that Mickelson, as in Michael Jackson, won the PGA Championship at the age of 50. All of these 5s, that includes the news story on September 20. Well, why don't I just run down this for you really quickly here, because it is important. Although I've said it so many other times, I'll just say it again. Michael Jackson's death at the age of 50 was exactly 4,000 days, and the number 4,000 is the G5000th word in Strong's Greek Concordance. 4,000 days to Pentecost in 2020, and Pentecost literally means 50th day. On that day, we had the rare crossover storm, which is when a storm crosses over from the Pacific into the Gulf of Mexico. Storm Cristobal, which means follower of Christ, as in the cross that he was crucified on, delivered 50-mile-per-hour winds to the Gulf Coast and engendered a tornado that hit Columbia County in Florida and knocked a literal sign, many, many yards up against a unevangelical church. It was a literal sign of warning and judgment for the American evangelical church. It was Pentecost, furthermore, and that Pentecost was exactly 50 weeks before Pentecost in 2021, when Mickelson, as in Michael Jackson, won the PGA Championship at the age of 50. It was on a golf course that is located precisely where the path of totality of the Great American Eclipse in 2017 exited the U.S. It was a major judgment warning for America, this eclipse, and that was a golf course, and it was exactly 82 weeks. Mickelson's win at the age of 50 on Pentecost, which literally means 50th day, was exactly 82 weeks after Tiger Woods won his 82nd championship, tying Sam Snead for the most wins in the PGA league, and thus making Tiger Woods the GOAT, greatest of all time, which God uses to hint at the GOAT Antichrist. That golf course was in Japan, the only one in the PGA Tour that is in Japan. The golf tournament is named Zozo, which is an ancient word that means demon in Western culture. And that golf course, just prior to him winning, was delayed. The tournament was delayed one day because of a prophetic typhoon, a hurricane that flooded the golf course, and on. It connects to the flooding of Washington, D.C. But anyway, that particular golf course in Japan is the only location in the world where a particular microbe grows, this microbe was discovered by an avid golfer in Japan, and that microbe produces the compound that is the derivative compound of what is IVER, ends with an ectin, which is God's cure for the CVD disease, which is why God pointed to that golf course, and why it all connects to the pointy thing that Michael Jackson died from. Okay? That's the reason for all of that. But as I just explained, it connects with a bunch of 50s. So back to what I was telling you in this story here, with this connection from Michael Jackson's death at the age of 50. Okay? We have on this September 21st date, 2 times 3 days, which is MJ after Tito died from a heart attack, just like Michael Jackson died from a heart attack. We have this story on September 21st of one of the 5 people that allege that MJ assaulted them as a kid, demanding more money after his last final payment of $500,000. Okay, back to where we were now. So all of these 5s, that includes the news story on September 21st of one of the 5 men demanding more money after getting paid the final $500,000 for alleged assault as a child, along with the connection to MJ's pointy thing at the age of 50, point to the date 5/5, May 5th, in 1993, which hints at 193, the 44th prime number, when the king of pop, Michael Jackson, joined former President Jimmy Carter, who in God's signs is symbolism for the prophecy and revelation about a 5th through 8th king's prophecy, who were the co-chairmen of the Heal Our Children, Heal the World initiative in Atlanta, Georgia. They met on this date to help promote the Atlanta Project's immunization drive. It was the most comprehensive immunization program ever mounted in the U.S. at the time, with 17,000 children immunized in just 5 days. Okay? That's all the significance there. That's why the date 5/5, when they met to celebrate this achievement that happened in 5 days regarding children, which is being hinted at, like I'm saying, with the 5 children that were allegedly assaulted by MJ. Okay, so 5/5 in 93 was 3,140% of a year before September 21st, 2024. Jimmy Carter, JC, who was born in 1924, and will die in 2024, which hints at G2424, the word for Jesus in the Greek concordance, JC, Jesus Christ, is predicted to die 5 days after September 21st. Okay? So these signs that I'm saying, I'm explaining how it points to Jimmy Carter through MJ, Michael Jackson, on September 21st, are in fact signs that reveal 5 days before the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. And that day, September 26th, will be 24 plus 24 hours, as in G2424, before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die near the I-55 in the area code 314, which is why the 3,140% of a year connection. Okay? So again, from the day that these 2 prophetic men, Michael Jackson and Jimmy Carter, met as I explained, all the relevance for that meeting. It is 3,140, which hints at 314, to September 21st, which is connected to the day that Kamala Harris, is predicted to die in a plane crash in the area code 314. But not only that, she will die near Little Egypt, which is symbolic of king, because Egypt and the king of Egypt persecuted the Israelites in Egypt, symbolic, and he, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, is symbolic of the Antichrist in the Bible, and where she will die in her plane crash near the I-55, as in the date 55 when the two men met, where she will crash will be where the paths of the eclipses crossed over each other and engendered an X over the nation, which hints at the CVD things, the pointy things, because eclipses are about where they meet in the middle and engender an X through their midpoint, and the midpoint of the eclipses that engendered an X hints at the mid-date of the eclipses, which was December 14th, 2020, the date that the first American took the pointy thing outside of a trial. Okay, and the X also is symbolic of chromosomes, which is what is altered by taking a pointy thing. One of these particular pointy things. Okay? All right. So that's also why this is all relevant, or that's also why this is relevant. All of this is relevant for connecting to the date that Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash. Jimmy Carter is equal to 135 in simple English gematria. 5, 5, and 93 was 1,350%, which is at 135, of a year after the beginning of the last 444 days of Carter's presidency, which was the beginning of the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, which in turn was 11 months and 17 days, which hints at the prophecy in Revelation 17:11, and also, which is about the 5th through 8th kings. It also hints at Zechariah 11:17, which describes the Antichrist, and also the 17th word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the proper noun Bama. Okay, and so the 444-day Iran hostage crisis hints at the 44th president, but it was 11 months and 17 days after the pointy things taken at the Jonestown suicide murder massacre, in which Tim Carter survived. He is the famous survivor of the Jonestown suicide murder massacre when they took pointy things. They drank the Kool-Aid, but that was to speed up the process of having taken the pointy things. Okay, and that day, the Jonestown massacre, was 666 days after the beginning of Jimmy Carter's presidency. So we have the symbolic ending of his presidency, the 444 days, connecting to the symbolic beginning of his presidency. The man that is one of the 5 that have been paid by MJ's estate is requesting an additional $213 million. 213 is the 69th semi-prime number, and this hints at the Antichrist in the most central prophecy in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, who wore, because of the 69 weeks in the prophecy, who wore jersey number 23. 69, 6 divided by 9 is 0.666, 2 divided by 3 is 0.666. This is the number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. The news of the request of one of the 5 allegedly assaulted was 2 times 3 days after the Jackson 5 member died at the age of 70. This prophecy in the book of Daniel is about a 69-week period followed by the 70th week. The prophecy in Daniel regards the 69th and 70th weeks in the prophecy. Michael Jackson and Jimmy Carter met on the date 5/5 in 93 to celebrate pointy things 3,442 days after Michael Jackson's Thriller video about people turning into zombies was released on December 2nd, 1983. 3,442 is the 290th super semi-prime number. In other words, 3,442, if I recall, is the 965th semi-prime number, and 965 is the 290th super prime number, and so that's why 3,442 is the 290th super semi-prime number. This is actually making it extra prophetic. Okay, 290 hints at 1 plus 1 and 9. That's how God does it in his signs. If he were to symbolize 9/11 with only two numbers, this is the way he would do it, with a 29 or a 92. Okay, and this also hints at Revelation 9:11, which is the verse that symbolizes Revelation chapter 9, which alludes to people turning into zombies and becoming demonically possessed. What confirms this connection is that Michael Jackson's Thriller video was directed by John Landis, who won the first ever Academy Award, and God uses firsts for his signs, for best makeup for the iconic scene in American Werewolf in London. The movie American Werewolf in London was released exactly 119 weeks, which hints at Revelation 9:11, before Thriller was released, before the Thriller video was released, also directed by John Landis. And so that this 119 weeks exact connection is solid confirmation for the 290th super prime number connection to the date that Jimmy Carter and Michael Jackson met about pointy things, which is complete amazing confirmation that people will turn into zombies and monsters like in American Werewolf due to having taken the pointy thing. That is what God is communicating here. And again, I explained how the date 5/5 in 93 connects to September 21st, which connects to the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash near where the solar eclipses crossed over each other. That's why American Werewolf in London was released exactly 36 years before the Great American Eclipse in 2017. 36 because it hints at 3 6s, 666, the number of the Antichrist. It is also 6 times 6 and also the 36th triangular number. The last number in the triangle of numbers that is 36 rows is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. The Great American Eclipse is 7 years, 1 month, and 7 days to Harris's predicted crash near the midpoint of the X engendered by the eclipses. Okay, and I explained how the X by the eclipses is symbolism for the pointy things, right? I already explained that, so I won't explain it again. But that's why it's more confirmation of the Great American Werewolf in London with its iconic scene that won Best Award when he transformed into a werewolf is communicating from God that people who have taken the thing, which is communicated by the midpoint of the eclipses, the mid date, that their chromosomes have been altered, marking them, making them marked by the Antichrist. These people will turn into monsters and zombies. That is what is being communicated. I've explained it pretty clearly now. This is how God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required, and this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. I have just now explained 2 ways that are so profound, in which American Werewolf in London communicates that people will be turned into monsters and zombies, those who have taken the pointy thing, who have been marked because their chromosomes have been altered with snake venom. That's what the protruding amino acid chain is on the CVD disease, which is what is in the CVD thing, which is what has been inserted into people's chromosomes. And the snake is the big symbol in the Bible of evil and Satan. So that's why they are marked by Satan. The Bible says, Bible prophecy says, those who have taken the mark are going to hell. Nowhere in the Bible does it say one cannot repent after having taken the mark of the Antichrist. But the pointy thing is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. In fact, it was, for those who have the eyes to see, a false form of religious worship taking it. Nor does it need a supposed new dispensation after supposedly all Christians, quote-unquote Christians, will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine, which Jesus called Nicolaitan and hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine, as he said in Revelation chapter 2. The commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy that tell them that this couldn't possibly be the mark of the Antichrist are described or explained, countered in the must-watch snake bite video on this channel. But make no mistake, I know far better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, and it is to prove what I have just said. Case closed. End of debate. No more discussion at all. It is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. And that's the purpose of this prediction. When Jimmy Carter dies on the 26th and Harris dies on the 28th, it will prove what I have just said. That's the point. That's the purpose of all of this. The ark in Noah's flood came to rest on the date 7/17. Okay, so the Great American Eclipse is 7 years, 1 month, and 7 days to Harris's predicted crash near the midpoint of the X engendered by the eclipses. The ark came to rest on the date 7/17, which is what's hinted at here, with 7 years, 1 month, and 7 days. And the flood began on the date 2/17. 717 is the 217th semi-prime number. Okay? The flood destruction is symbolism for the coming destruction through the mass demonic possession and zombie pandemic that's coming, right? Thriller, and by the way, on that note, it was exactly 5 months between the beginning of the flood and the day the ark came to rest. And it is through 5G frequencies, as alluded to in the 5th trumpet in the book of Revelation, that will facilitate the demonic possession. I'm jumping ahead, but this is why, and that's Revelation chapter 9, which is why the Revelation chapter 9:11 hints at connections here. And why the date 5/5, when these two Antichrist figures, the King of Pop and Jimmy Carter, symbolism, came together for pointy things. Okay? It's because 5G will trigger all of this. Okay. So Thriller was the 7th and final song released from Jackson's Thriller album. Harris's predicted crash on September 28th will be 7 days after the story that the Jackson estate is suing the man that is threatening them. The Thriller video was released, so that's confirmation, right? See that? 7 days, 7th song released from the Thriller album. The Thriller video was released exactly 11 months before, begins with a F and ends with an ouchie, whose name in Italian means sickle, as in the harvest tool, right? As in the book of Revelation, chapter 14, and the harvest of the grapes of wrath by the sickle thrown into the winepress of God's wrath. Okay, so this was exactly, the Thriller video was released, the Thriller zombie video was released exactly 11 months before the F and ends with an ouchie became director of the organization that begins with an N and ends with a D, you know what I'm talking about. And the middle letters are IAI. And also that same day, the release of the Killing Fields movie, which was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. Okay? This 11 months to the 7 nominations hints at Genesis 7:11, the verse in which the flood judgment began. And it in turn connects with exactly this F ends with an ouchie day and Killing Fields Day. Right? And the Killing Fields movie, by the way, is about a true story with the Khmer Rouge and a politicide. It was a genocide politicide, which is exactly what's coming, led by the Antichrist 44th president. Okay. Just like the Jonestown Massacre, too. It wasn't just a suicide, it was a murder, but that's explained before in another video. Okay, so anyway, this day that this F ends with an ouchie guy and Killing Fields Day was 11 months after the zombie Thriller video, but it is in turn also exactly 444 months, as in 44th president, to the day the Atlanta Braves won the 117th World Series, which is again 11 months to the 7 nominations, 117. Also, 117 is extremely prophetic in God's science. It is symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist because it means to separate. That's what the purpose of the mark of the Antichrist is, to separate. The separation of the wheat from the chaff, the goats from the sheep. The first verse of the phrase "let it divide" in the book of Genesis, chapter 1. In the Hebrew is equal to 117 in Hebrew gematria. The middle chapter, the dividing chapter of the Bible, is Psalm 117. So it means to divide, and that's why it's symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, which is why the 117th World Series was won by Atlanta, which is where these organizations are that promote the pointy thing, was exactly 444 months after, begins with an F, ends with an ouchie, and the Killing Fields movie, because of the 44th president. And the winning by the Atlanta, who, by the way, the prophetic final out was done by player number 5, Freddie Freeman. And that was the same day that the pointy thing was approved for 5-year-olds, children, as in Michael Jackson children, as in the 5 alleged assaulted children, as in the date 5/5, when Michael Jackson met with Jimmy Carter regarding the immunization of children. Because this was an abomination, and that's why player number 5 made the final out. Anyway, on the day that it was approved for 5-year-olds, and that day was 9 months and 11 days after the home run king, player number 44, died in Atlanta 6 + 6 + 6 days after publicly taking the pointy thing and promoting it for the three-letter organization that's in Atlanta. In other words, people who took and promoted and condoned through taking it, because taking the mark of the Antichrist, this pointy thing, is by no means only about the self and what they're doing to their own body. It was an act of fealty to the cult, knowing that it was deadly. It was a religious spirit, it was a spiritual thing. It was a spiritual abomination because of what it does, because it contains, like I said, the serpent venom, and it uses cells from unborn babies in its development, right? So it's a spiritual abomination, but it's not only about the person taking it. When a person took it, or when they wore the MASKSs, these were acts that supported the system, that compelled other people to take it, right? Because if people didn't do it and disobeyed the unrighteous men, MANDATS, then the whole thing would dissolve, and we would not, and the totalitarian movement would dissipate. It's only because people go along with it that it has its power. And so by taking it, you also enabled the system to compel other people to take it. And that made it especially unrighteous. And that goes for the MASKs as well, and everything. And the L-downs, everything. So, okay, back to the subject here. Okay, in 9 months and 11 days, again, because of Revelation 9:11, which is about the coming mass demonic possession and zombie pandemic. Okay? Now, in other words, people who took the things will become zombies and demonically possessed, and will be involved in a politicide led by the 44th president Antichrist king, as in King of Pop, who wore jersey number 23 in basketball in high school, as in MJ. MJ equals 23 in simple English gematria. So, I hope you got that. I just explained how the date that Jimmy Carter met Michael Jackson over the pointy things, it connected to the release of the Thriller zombie video, but it also connected, as I'm saying, to our present time, like I explained in the previous paragraph, but I now just explained also how it connected to the American Werewolf in London, and the Killing Fields, and begins with an F and ends with an ouchie, right? And how it connects to our present day with the CVD pointy thing. On the day that player 5 made the out, on the day that it was approved for 5-year-olds. When the narcissistic elder baby boomer generation broke the social contract and had kids take it, knowing that the CVD disease doesn't affect them, in order to supposedly prevent the spread of it. They sacrificed the younger generation, which is the opposite of what is supposed to happen in a supposed crisis, which it wasn't. But in a supposed crisis, it is the elder generation that makes the sacrifice, not the younger generation. It spelled the end of America. It is the end. That's so abominable that happened. Also, on September 21st, 2024, Joseph, in the Bible, the 11th son of the third patriarch is Joseph. So Joseph Biden, on September 21st, 2024, held a summit for the Quad Alliance of Nations. He promoted a cancer moonshot. Many people who took the SHO got and will get cancer. This was the same day that 4 people, as in the Quad Alliance, were killed in a mass shooting. Mass shootings in God's signs are symbolic of the mass things. The things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of things that come out of things and go into people. This 4 people were killed in a mass shooting in the 22nd state to join the Union. The number 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist would have been a Tav mark. The Tav letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the last and 22nd letter in the alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book in the Bible and the 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. And this state, this 22nd state's flag, is nothing but a white flag with a big red X on it. And again, X is symbolic of the chromosomes that are altered by taking the mark of the Antichrist into people's blood, which is why this X is the color red. This gives us 44 because it's the 4 people and the Quad Alliance on the same day. Okay, and the cancer moonshot, right? And the shooting. This gives us 44, and this hints at the 44th president who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist. On September 21st, 2024, the death of Catherine Crosby was reported. She was the wife of Bing Crosby. She starred in the movie The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Bing Crosby was known for his role in the 7 films of the Road to series with Bob Hope, which hints at Obama, whose slogan was Hope. Okay, so if you don't know, Bing Crosby was one of the most famous entertainers of the 20th century. At one point, he was said to be the most admired man in America. He was not only that, but he was, I guess you could say, the first international star because he was famous around the world. This pop star. Okay, Bing Crosby was the pop star of the day. Okay, so, and he had this series of comedy movies with Bob Hope, 7 of them. Road to, as in Road to Shanghai, Road to Bali, Road to Singapore, okay, on and on. Crosby, but there were 7 of them, and his wife was starred in the movie The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Crosby was in over 70 movies and was one of 7 children, and his career began with a group named the Rhythm Boys. One of the trio was Harry Barris, who was in 7 of Crosby's movies. The name Harry Barris hints at Kamala Harris, as does Crosby's birth name, Harry Lillis Crosby. Crosby's first movie was King of Jazz, which ties this into Jimmy Carter because in God's signs, he is king symbolism, Jimmy Carter, as I've explained in other videos. And this connects to September 21st, a date that we were expecting King Carter prophetic signs. Okay, so Crosby's first movie was King of Jazz with Barry Harris and his other partner of the Rhythm Boys. Kamala Harris will die on a voyage. She will be on the road, if you will, to Los Angeles. She'll be flying, but she'll be on the road, if you will, to Los Angeles. Her death is predicted to be 7 days after the death of the actress in the 7th voyage. I should say her predicted death in a voyage will be 7 days after the death of the actress in the 7th voyage of Sinbad. Harry Barris starred in The Lost Weekend. Harris's death will be on a Saturday, the day before her predicted fundraiser in LA, which is why she will be flying out to LA. It will be a lost weekend for the Democrat Party. And furthermore, Hollywood is in Los Angeles, where The Lost Weekend and Crosby's movies were made. Bing Crosby appears in an episode of The Danny Thomas Show, which according to Wikipedia was the 9th most popular show of the 20th century, which ran for 11 seasons, which hints at Revelation 9/11, and the judgment warning on 9/11 in 2001, the warning for America. Okay, in this show, Crosby plays himself and is scouting out locations in Beirut for another Road to film, The Road to Lebanon. The episode aired on April 20th, 1966, exactly 6 + 6 + 6 months after the birth of Kamala Harris. And again, Crosby's name hints at Kamala Harris. Harry Lillis is his real name. Okay, and so the episode in which Harry Lillis was in the Danny Thomas Show, and God pointed to the Danny Thomas Show through the death of Phil Donahue in August, as I explained in the other video. So God has already let us know that this is important. This is one of the most popular shows of the 20th century. We were talking now about Bing Crosby, one of the most popular entertainers of the 20th century. God is very, very creative, and he's brought all facets of American culture into his big picture of science. That's his prerogative to do so. And now he's finally brought in Bing Crosby, which we figured he would do because Bing Crosby was huge. So you would figure that in some way Bing Crosby would be used in his big picture of science. And by the way, why does God do all of this? To communicate that he has had his hand on America, including American culture. He is involved intimately with everything. That's something that is not fully appreciated by many people. In fact, there are many people that are interested in prophetic signs that have closed their mind to anything other than a prophetic sign in the night sky. And there are others that have closed their mind to anything other, be a prophetic sign being anything other than a sign in Israel or something related to Israel. And they would actually say none of this is true, what I'm saying, because for whatever reason, they can't fathom in their creativity, in their imagination, how God would actually be involved in American culture and orchestrating all of this communication through this pop culture. But God is doing this to communicate, not only to bring in people from every walk of interest, like, for example, Bing Crosby and these signs would be communicating right now to someone who is a baby boomer or older. But regardless, it's also in the bigger picture communicating that he has had his hand on all of it. This is his nation, America. It isn't actually wrong to say America is un-Israel. God departed Israel and chose his Gentile nation. It is his chosen nation. It isn't only like Israel, it is un-Israel. Right? It is his chosen nation. And he has had his hand on its history. And he's communicating this beautifully through the videos on this channel, which is really the only place you are going to hear about these things. Now, this Road to Lebanon episode, or rather when Bing Crosby was pretending to be making another movie, The Road to Lebanon, which, by the way, hits at the Middle East. Speaking of, prophetic signs coming back to Israel, because, of course, Israel is the focus of God. Anyway, the Road to Lebanon episode, if you will, was it released exactly 6 plus 6 plus 6 months, which hints at the Antichrist, after the birth of Kamala Harris. And Harris's death in a plane crash will lead to the return of the Antichrist to the presidency. Barack Obama will replace her. Michelle Obama will first replace her. Joe Biden will step down. Michelle Obama will appoint Barack as her vice president, and then she will step down. Okay. Now, Kamala Harris is predicted to die near Little Egypt on the road to Los Angeles. Now, Little Egypt is also, that's a hint at Egypt, which is in the Middle East, as is Lebanon. Okay, Crosby fell off a stage and into the orchestra pit on March 20th, 1977. This was a big deal. He was an elder man at this point, and I think he was 74, actually. And anyway, he ruptured a disc in his spine, was in the hospital, I think, for over a month. And but he fell off the stage into the orchestra pit on the state exactly 149 months after Harris was born. Harris is predicted to crash, just like Crosby crashed into the orchestra pit. She is predicted to crash on her flight to Los Angeles, which sent fallen angels into the bottomless pit, which is why Crosby fell into the orchestra pit. God is using Los Angeles in his signs to hint at the fallen angels that come out of the bottomless pit in Revelation chapter 9, which is symbolized by Revelation chapter 9:11, and is alluding to the coming mass demonic possession, the zombie pandemic. Crosby crashed not only 149 months after Harris's birth, but 149 days, that's a typo, 149 days before his last American concert. That was on the day that Elvis Presley died, the king of rock and roll, who lived in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a hint at Memphis, Egypt, in Little Egypt, in a king's palace, the mansion, symbolism for a king's palace in Egypt. Okay, and on that day, that Crosby sang his last concert, the day that Elvis Presley died, the power went out during his concert and he sang without amplification. That was how he went out. On the day that Elvis died, there was an electrical signal from space that astronomers nicknamed the WOW signal. And for many years until recently, because recently it's been determined what the source was, many have speculated that it could have possibly been a communication from aliens, which in truth are fallen angels pretending to be aliens, and as judgment for those people that think that aliens could possibly exist because they don't have a biblical worldview, and including the majority of quote-unquote Christians who aren't really Christians, because if you believe that aliens could possibly exist, it means you don't believe the Bible and Jesus, because God became a man, because the center of God's creation is man. He became a man and died for the sins of man. He didn't take the form of aliens and hopscotch around the universe, dying on other crosses for the sins of other aliens. But the majority of Christians' worldview isn't even that clear. And anyway, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 tells us we get the deception that we ask for, which is why the world is about to be inundated with demons pretending to be aliens. The name Bing hints at the WOW signal. That's amazing. That is amazing. So he has this nickname Bing, and there's been some kind of story throughout his career as to how he got the nickname. He told a lie, actually. He told the lie that he got the nickname when he was playing cops and robbers. Okay, and he would go bing, bing, bing with his gun. That was a lie. He got it through a movie about a Bingo Bugle something. And anyway, his nickname was Bingo, and then it was changed to Bing. But anyway, Bing, as in ping, signal, he died on the day of the wow signal, on the day that Elvis Presley died, okay? Now, no, sorry, that was the last day of his, that was the last concert, sorry. Crosby's last big hit was a duet with David Bowie, who is symbolism for aliens, right? David Bowie, his career was started when he pretended to be an alien. He was the pioneer of glam rock, and he portrayed an alien having landed on Earth. And on and on. There's more reasons why David Bowie is aliens symbolism. But the thing is that the last big hit of Crosby's was with David Bowie, who was alien symbolism, and the last concert of Bing Crosby was on the day of the wow signal, which was theorized to be from aliens. The recording of the Bowie duet was made on 9/11. Revelation 9/11 again. Demons coming out of the bottomless pit, pretending to be aliens, in 1977. Exactly 4 times 4 times 6 plus 6 plus 6 months, which identifies the Antichrist as the 44th president, before 9/11 in 2001, which hints at Revelation 9/11, which is the reason for the 149 months and 149 days connections before and after Bing Crosby. Again, Bing Crosby's fall was 149 months after Harris's birth and 149 days before his last concert. And that's because 149 is the 5 times 7th prime number. And this hints at the 5th of 7 trumpets in Revelation chapter 9, which is alluding to the mass demonic possession, the fallen angels coming out of the bottomless pit, which is why he fell into the pit. But the 5th trumpet, the 5th of 7 trumpets, also hints at 5G, because G is the 7th letter. And again, the mass demonic possession will be facilitated through the 5G frequencies, the prince of the power of the air, as it is said in the Bible. Satan, the prince of the power of the air, which is why the mass demonic possession will be triggered by frequencies in the air, and also, by the way, why Kamala Harris will fall from the sky in a plane crash. In 1977, an 8th, as in 4 plus 4, Road 2 movie was planned, titled Road to the Fountain of Youth. But Crosby died that year of a heart attack. Okay, this is amazing. This communicates the coming promise from fallen angels pretending to be demons, pretending to be aliens, I should say, that will promise a fountain of youth. Okay, the first lie ever told in the Bible by Satan to Eve in the garden was that she would not die and that she would be immortal. This is why the last lie of the age will be the same lie. Through what I'm saying, demons pretending to be aliens and promising a fountain of youth, no doubt through a pointy thing. Bing Crosby and Catherine Crosby have a son, Harry Lillis, which hints at Harris, who starred in the original Friday the 13th movie. Revelation 9/11 day, October 4th, is predicted to be 13 days, as in Friday the 13th movie, after Catherine Crosby's death. Crosby wrote, by the way, she died at the age of 90, and God pairs 9 and 13 because 9 times 13 is 117, and I explained already in this video how 117 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, which will trigger mass demonic possession in a zombie pandemic, alluded to and symbolized by Revelation 9/11, which is why Revelation 9/11 day will be 13 days after Catherine Crosby died at the age of 90. Bing Crosby wrote 22 songs in his career. He wrote 22 songs. He sang many more. And the number 22 is symbolic of the mark, as I explained. The most successful of his songs that he wrote, the two most successful songs were At Your Command, which hints at the Antichrist and Satan and people pledging allegiance to Satan through, for example, taking the mark of the Antichrist and wearing the MASs and Ks. And the song was number one on the pop chart for 3 weeks. And the other song, I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You, recorded by Duke Ellington, Frank Sinatra, Thelonious Monk, Billie Holiday, and Mildred Bailey, among others, okay? I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You is another hint at the fallen angels coming out of the bottomless pit, which is why Crosby fell into a pit, the orchestra pit. The news on September 21st, 2024, was that trumpet, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs. In archaic English, the word trump means trumpet or the sounding of a trumpet, and President Trump was born on the day on a Sabbath when in every synagogue was read the portion of the Torah regarding God commanding the making of the trumpets. So Trump was made on the day that the trumpets were made, and that's why he's God's trumpet. But trumpet on September 21st dodged another debate. And that was actually the headline on the Drudge page, for example. The Drudge page used this word, dodged. Trumpet dodged another debate. Okay? He's not going to have another debate. Why? Because the one he just had was completely rigged. Not only were the moderators easy on Kamala Harris and tough on Trump, not only did they fact check in the middle of the debate to prove Trump was wrong about something that he wasn't wrong about, which was a lie, in other words. Not only that, here's the truth. And the prediction being made in this video will prove what I am saying to be true. This is the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. It is to prove these controversial things. And the truth about why trumpet dodged the debate is exactly what Trump is saying. Because Trump is God's trumpet. In fact, he's more than just his trumpet. He is one of the two witnesses in Revelation chapter 11. And that will also be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. And make no mistake, I know far better than you the reason for this prediction. It is to prove that Trump is one of the two witnesses. That's another story, and I intend to explain that in another video. But he is, it's a fact. He is one of the two witnesses. All right? Just like John the Baptist, Jesus said was Elijah for those who had the eyes to see. Well, the two witnesses aren't going to be recognized by people. It's for those who have the eyes to see, or the ears to hear, as Jesus said. So I'm going to be explaining that, though, more. I'll prove it to you. But the prediction will prove it. That's the point of the prediction. Make no mistake, I know the reason for the prediction. And anyway, trumpeted that the debate was rigged because the moderators let the Harris campaign know exactly what was going to be asked in the debate. The reason why Harris was able to perform unexpectedly well and performed in a way that was inhuman, because when she performed, she didn't pause like I'm doing right now, speaking naturally, speaking and then reversing one's grammatical errors and things like that. She had it totally down, didn't mess up at all, except for maybe slightly in the beginning, which is completely not only uncharacteristic of her, but uncharacteristic of a human. She knew exactly what was coming, and she had been planning, which is one reason why she barely is in public, planning for days and days and days, getting down the debate and the questions. because ABC and the moderators are part of the blob, the behemoth, the Goliath, the entity that ultimately is being orchestrated by Satan, although the pawns in the entity don't know it. But it's a part of this totalitarian system that has no regard for democracy. When they say they're campaigning to protect democracy, it's complete projection. They are the 100% enemies of democracy. And anyway, that's the truth of that debate. It was completely rigged. Kamala Harris knew exactly what was coming the entire time, and she had everything prepared to say. And also, this system, this blob, this entity, includes the intelligence agencies, whose primary purpose, existence, is to not just overthrow regimes that they don't like, but maintain regimes, and they're in the business of regime change or regime maintaining, etc. And they've had decades to perfect their skills. They understand psychology, and they know Trump's psychology, and they knew exactly how to get to Trump, and thereby they were also in cahoots with ABC and the moderators, giving the precise questions to elicit the precise responses they wanted from Trump, to which Kamala Harris was instructed to respond accordingly. It was a massive farce designed to frustrate Trump and make Kamala Harris look competent. Okay, that's the truth, which is why Trump would not agree to another debate. Now, Trump trumpeted not going along with another debate on September 21st. Okay? So Trump trumpeting this makes it a prophetic sign on September 21st. So Trump, in other words, is a sign on September 21st, trumpeting the evil, unrighteous Democratic Party and this blob of the regime working against its own citizens to maintain its power. Right? 2016 changed history after Brexit and the rise of Trump. These agencies decided that it was time to shut down free speech and turn its tools and skills on its own people. That's what happened. All right? So that's why we are in a totalitarian coup at the moment. Okay, now, so Trump trumpeted dodged another debate on September 21st. Trump trumpeted again through God by dodging the debate that this debate was evil, and it just illustrates how evil the system is because of all that I just explained. Okay? That was God communicating what I just explained through Trump dodging the debate. Why did he dodge the debate? Because of what I just explained. And the predictions will prove what I've just explained. But Trump is God's trumpet, trumpeting these things. Okay? The reason, to go a little further, the reason why Trump has the personality that he has that irritates people is exactly for this purpose. It is to stir up the hornet's nest in order for God to trumpet these things as the cockroaches and hornets fly out of the nest. Irritated. It's to stir up things. That's Trump's purpose. That's why he has the personality that he has, which people dislike. I personally just see him for who he is. People see through it. They don't see it the way these haters see it, but they are spiritually with Satan, and Trump for them is an affront. It's not only a threat. It's a threat, but it's an affront. It's like they shriek at this thing that's in front of them, because he, although they don't realize it, symbolizes righteousness and truth, and they are with lies and evil. They don't know it though. The majority of them are just sheeple, brainwashed, as Stalin said, useful idiots. But they will not be blameless on Judgment Day. They are guilty. They love the lies. They are part of the evil. Just like the Nazis in the Nazi party that didn't put the people in the ovens were also guilty, right? It's a collective guilt. They are guilty. They need to repent immediately. That's the purpose of this video. They are going to hell. All of them. All Democrats are going to hell. And someone calls themselves a Democrat and they don't know what's going on, okay, fine, But if they know what's going on, they are drawn to that and are still part of that, because it isn't the party of 60 years ago. But if they're still a Democrat, they've had decades to figure this out, right? It's not like the Democrat Party turned evil yesterday. The Democrat Party and the media and the big blob, the Goliath, the entity, was in the process of becoming what it is for decades. But now it is complete evil. It is completely sick, cannot be rescued in any way. It must be destroyed. And the only thing that can destroy it is God. It is so big and so evil now. It is the end. And these people will be wiped from the earth soon enough. And then the 1,000 years of peace and Christ's reign on earth will begin after these people are eliminated. Also, the first debate with Trump and Biden was completely different. And it was recognized back then that this was part of the cabal, the deep state. This was part of their plan to get rid of Joe Biden because he was lagging in the polls. They need a puppet. They need someone to be in the office that will be a part of the regime, be the person to basically fill the office while the regime does its thing. And but anyway, he was down in the polls. He's getting old, so they decided that they needed to do something about it, and they purposefully had a debate really early in the season. Normally, debates don't occur in June, and Trump took the bait because, of course, he's itching to debate Joe Biden because it's a cakewalk. It's Joe Biden. So they had the debate in June, and the deep state knew that Joe Biden would flail. This was their way out of Joe Biden. They knew exactly what was going to happen. Joe Biden flailed. He embarrassed himself and the party. And then a few days later, there began the uprising within the fundraising community. The Hollywood crowd began prophetically, actually, with the actor from Ocean's 12, I made a video about that. God was communicating something important regarding that, related to that, Ocean's 12. And I'm talking about George Clooney. And so they successfully got rid of Joe Biden. But the point is that the moderators in the first debate were not playing like the moderators in the second debate. And Trump expected the moderators to be like they were in the first debate, which was fair and doing their job, moderating. So anyway, that wasn't the case in the second debate, and that's why Trump did that. No way, these debates are now rigged. But the first one, the point is that you can see the contrast between the moderators, and this is just more proof that the second one was completely rigged, because the first one wasn't at all like the second one, and that's because it was the deep state's intention to embarrass Joe Biden early in the season so they could get another candidate. A concept that I need to mention here is fifth generation warfare, which is what we are experiencing right now. It's actually a war, and it's being waged in a civil war. It's a civil war, but it's being waged by the ruling class with psychological warfare. Like I was saying earlier, the intelligence agencies have been honing this skill. Their modus operandi is to do this thing, which is to wage this type of warfare, unconventional warfare, against other regimes. And it's been doing this for decades. It's psychological warfare that it wages. And their knowledge and techniques regarding this are massive. They're very, very good at it at this point. And like I said, since 2016, they've used this technology, this psychological warfare. It's a fifth generation warfare. You start with, bows and arrows, and then cavalry and guns, and then tanks, and, we're at fifth generation warfare, which is warfare by information. It's an information warfare. And it's psychological in nature. So it's called Psy-war, right? It's psyops. That's what's being waged against the U.S. population, its own population, the ruling class, the intelligence agencies, the blue team blob is waging war against its own population. And this was decided that this was what they needed to do to maintain their regime when things took a wrong turn for them with the rise of Trump and Brexit in 2016. They freaked out. They no longer believed in the internet and freedom of information, producing what they wanted, which is an unending continuation of their regime and their philosophy and worldview, which is a false worldview. It's a lie. And so they need to maintain this worldview, and in other words, globalism. They need now to wage war on their own citizens, which is what is going on. Mixed into that is a merger between state and the corporate world. It's a form of fascism. We don't really have the language today to label things. We can only use the language we have, and it's outdated. Terms like fascism and communism and Marxism. What we're experiencing, though, is a Marxian, fascistic, new totalitarianism, where state and corporations have merged into this entity that's essentially waging war on its own population in order to maintain the regime, but also feed the corporate greed. I will leave a few links in the description box below this video a few links to very important other videos on this subject and these subjects that I've just been discussing. Now, back to what I'm saying here with this prophetic sign regarding Trump. On September 21st, him trumpeting, dodging another debate. On the same day that Trump dodged another debate, fans at a baseball stadium in Dodgers Stadium in Los Angeles, as in Fallen Angels, witnessed flames and smoke from a massive, quote, major emergency, unquote, fire of an old courthouse right near the stadium. This hinted at the lawlessness and the coming suspension of constitutional rights, which, by the way, have already been suspended. During the CVD days especially, the only constitutional right that wasn't trampled on was the Second Amendment. But that's coming too. Because the Second Amendment is what stands in their way from taking complete control, which is the reason why the existence for the Second Amendment. It was designed to counter a potential tyranny from the state, which is what we are experiencing, which is why the state is orchestrating, with Satan behind the scenes, the removal of the Second Amendment. Okay, so this burning of the courthouse next to Dodger Stadium also hinted at the death of Kamala Harris in a fiery plane crash into a baseball stadium 7 days later, as she will be on her way to Los Angeles. Again, Dodger Stadium is in Los Angeles. After 7 days of marching around Jericho, the walls of security of Jericho, the Israelites, led by Joshua, who in the Bible died at the age of 110, blew trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. So they marched for 7 days, okay? And then the walls collapsed in God's judgment after trumpeting, which is why Kamala Harris will die 7 days after trumpet dodged and the fire in Los Angeles. And she will die in Los Angeles, or on her way to Los Angeles, 7 days after this, okay? Because of the 7 days of marching, like a voyage, if you will, like her, Kamala Harris, 7 days later. That's why they marched for 7 days, or rather the other way around. She will die 7 days after what I'm explaining because of it being a parallel with the book of Joshua. Okay. Now again, Joshua died at the age of 110. In other words, the number 110 symbolizes this collapse of security walls, which is why, by the way, the Twin Towers were 110 stories before they collapsed. On this same day, that 100 firefighters were called out to the fire at the 1100 block, which is at 110, of San Fernando Road in Los Angeles. The White House posted on its YouTube channel a video of Kamala Harris visiting the work site of the repairs done on the I-10 highway in Los Angeles, and she trumpeted its reopening after its closure due to a fire in November of 2023. Okay, so the I-10 God has been using in his signs, this isn't the first instance, to hint at the number 110, which is this very important number, as I said, that symbolizes the book of Joshua and the walls of security collapsing in God's judgment after marching for 7 days. So Kamala Harris's video of her at the I-10, which hints at 110, and Joshua and the 7 days of marching, the White House posted this video 7 days of her at the I-10 before she is predicted to die in a plane crash on her way to Los Angeles. And the I-10 fire on the I-10 that caused the shutdown and her being there to trumpet its reopening was in Los Angeles. The post of this video of Harris at the I-10 is a parallel with the book of Joshua that confirms her death in a fiery crash 7 days later. Harris visited the site on the I-10, which is at 110, on November 19th, 2023, 314 days before she was predicted to die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium in the area code 314 near the I-55, I-70, and I-44 meet in Los Angeles. In St. Louis, I should say, sorry. Okay, so again, she was at this I-10 site, the I-10 highway repair construction site, 314 days before she's predicted to die in the area code 314. But furthermore, the reason why she'll die in the location that she will die is because God will be pointing to these numbers through the highways, the I-55, the I-70, and the I-44. The I-44 because of the 44th president, the I-70 because of the 70th week in Daniel chapter 9 that regards the Antichrist, and the I-55 because of the fifth trumpet and 5G frequencies that will facilitate the zombie pandemic through those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. But also, in the Bible, the most evil king in Israel history ruled for 55 years. Okay, now the day that she was at the I-10 highway on November 19th, 2023, was the same day that 4 former First Ladies attended the funeral in the 4th state for Rosalind Carter, whose name is equal to 9 times 110 in English gematria, and it was the date 1119, which also hints at 9/11, and 990 is the 44th triangular number. And her funeral was in the 4th state, attended by 4 former First Ladies. This was also the day that the player number 4 times 4, number 16, staged a 4th quarter comeback after having thrown 4 interceptions in the game. The Lions scored, and that hints at the comeback of the 44th president to the White House. The Lions scored 31 points in this game, and this hinted at the Lions' roar in Isaiah 31:4. Isaiah chapter 31 speaks of the defeat of the Antichrist, the 44th president, who will make a comeback to the White House after the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. The White House posted the video of Harris at the I-10 exactly 44 weeks after she was at the I-10, on the day of these signs that pointed to the number 44. That's so amazing. The fire on San Fernando Road next to Dodgers Stadium was 440 plus 440 plus 440 days exactly after the impeachment trial began over Trump's call to march to the Capitol building at 1:10 p.m., after which the security perimeter was breached, which hinted at the walls of security of Jericho being breached after Joshua, who died at the age of 110, led them in the march. Okay? The impeachment trial that began on February 9th, 2021, was in turn exactly 50 years after the San Fernando Valley earthquake. Okay, so again, the San Fernando Valley Road courthouse fire next to Dodger Stadium connects to the San Fernando Valley earthquake extremely prophetically. 50 years is extremely prophetic in the Bible. And the San Fernando Valley earthquake was the most consequential earthquake in American history. For one, it started as a result the USGS Okay? Had the San Fernando Valley earthquake continued for another few seconds, would have caused the collapse of the San Fernando Dam and killed thousands of people. In other words, that earthquake was a big warning from God of judgment and destruction. Could have happened, but God stopped it from happening because America wasn't yet ready to be destroyed. Now it is, though. And so, this threat of the collapse of the San Fernando Dam connects to the beginning of the impeachment trial over Trump's call to march at 1:10 p.m. That was part of the impeachment, by the way. They held up the big cards talking about Trump and the time, right, and everything. 1:10 p.m., which hints at 110. And that in turn connected with 440 plus 440 plus 440 days to the San Fernando Road fire on the day of the White House video post of Kamala Harris at the I-10 highway, which is at 110, just like the time 1:10 p.m. And again, the number 110 is associated with earthquakes. That's the point here. That's why it connects 50 years exactly to the San Fernando Valley earthquake, because Joshua, who led the Israelites, died at the age of 110, and the walls of Jericho collapsed due to an earthquake. Archaeology proves this, by the way. So 110 is associated with earthquakes here. So we have this amazing connection here, okay? The fire at Dodger Stadium was exactly 36 months, 36 since it's 666. I think I explained that already, 3 6s, 6 times 6. After the fire on the roof of the Saints, as in the church, symbolism for the church, Superdome Stadium, okay? And it was a roof fire at that, because fire came down on the roof into the upper room where the disciples were gathered. Tongues of fire came down on Pentecost. Pentecost itself, the first Pentecost of the church age, was a parallel with the fire and smoke that came down on top of the mountain on Mount Sinai. And so that's why it's a roof fire. It hints at the church, but it's a judgment for the church sign. It's a warning of judgment because God is extremely displeased with the church. In fact, this is the primary reason for the end times. It's the church, the thing that is the purpose of God's creation. And God is displeased with the church, and so the end times is an act of God's love, if you will, to force the complacent church into shaking them and waking them up and discarding their horrible doctrine and theology that causes them to have the Nicolaitan works that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on. Okay, make sure you watch the 23 church signs video on this channel. Now, what I'm saying here, this is why, by the way, the Saints won Super Bowl 44 during the presidency of the 44th president, because he is the Antichrist who will persecute the church for the purpose of what I just described, to test the faith of quote-unquote Christians, to finally get them to wake up and make a decision. Are you going to continue to be lukewarm and pretend to be a Christian, or are you going to finally sacrifice your life? Because when it's said a person gives their life to Christ, it means to give their life to Christ. But the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians don't really get it. Jesus said to hate their lives in this world. And one needs to die like a kernel of wheat and go into the ground in order to then be able to produce fruit. Being born again implies a death of the self. The Bible says our lives do not belong to us. But yet, the vast majority of Christians are living lives in the world, worldly lives, pursuing things that they desire, like a career, some goal, a vacation, retirement, a nice marriage, whatever, anything, kids even. All of it is not, it's not a sacrifice. Jesus said to bear one's cross and to follow him. Well, where did he go? He went to sacrifice his life. That's why in the Bible, Jesus and in other places uses the metaphor of a slave in bondage being freed and then becoming the willing slave of the person that freed them. But most Christians don't get this. This world isn't where they are if they're a Christian, and their life does not belong to them. Their money doesn't belong to them. It's all the Lord's. Their life, the only reason why they are still alive and not in the kingdom already, is to do work. But evangelicals have a phobia regarding work because of their Gnostic doctrine, which John wrote is Antichrist. Literally, their doctrine is rooted in Gnosticism because Calvin and Luther Calvin titled his writings Systematic Augustinianism, only quoted Augustine and disparaged the other early church fathers that came before, centuries before, who knew one of the apostles or knew someone that did. And Luther was an Augustinian monk. Well, Augustine was an official auditor in the Manichaean sect of Gnosticism for 9 years before joining the Catholic Church, which is why his latter writings corrupted the Western Church. And the Protestant Reformation was a revivification of this corruption. And Calvinism and sovereign grace popularity waxes and wanes throughout history 4 times in the last 500 years or so. And currently we're in a peak of this Gnostic doctrine, this Nicolaitan doctrine. And Jesus says, God has clearly communicated precisely what the Nicolaitan doctrine is. But the Nicolaitans are what enforce the doctrine, because the doctrine wouldn't exist, because no one reading the Bible on their own would ever come to the conclusions of Calvinism. Like for someone in jail, for example, you have to be taught to interpret it in certain ways, and all of the workaround solutions to the countless passages that contradict their doctrine. You have to be taught these solutions to all of this nonsense. But that's all institutionalized through the money, the monetization of the church, the only thing that Jesus got violently angry about during his ministry. That's why Jesus forbid preaching for money. And the verses that the pastors use to support their preaching for money are twisted and out of context. They don't quote the entire passage, just a little isolation of it, a snippet. Paul never talked about preaching for money. In all of the instances that these pastors want to use, he's talking about receiving some food, but not preaching for money. Jesus forbid the preaching for money because he knew that these institutions would arise that would cement and institutionalize these egregious, horrendous errors, such as Jehovah's Witness and Catholicism, and the errors in the Protestant, Lutheran, evangelical church. The word Nicolaitan comes from Greek, meaning ruling over the laity, which is why Jesus forbid teachers and calling anyone your teacher or your father. Jesus also forbid this, and he knew for this same reason that I'm describing. Jesus said we have one teacher, him. The Bible, the Holy Spirit, and fellowship are sufficient for our learning. We do not need teachers, supposed teachers, supposed anointed ones that go to college and learn systematic theology, whereas the Bible was never meant to be studied systematically, where the seminaries churn out these pastors that preach the Gnostic doctrine to the nation. Jesus hates all of this. Jesus said twice, he hates the Nicolaitans, the ruling over the laity. And teachers, but the Nicolaitans aren't only pastors, priests, reverends, and popes. They are the sycophant followers of these disobedient so-called anointed ones. The first warning that Jesus gave to the apostles in the Olivet Discourse was to beware of the many people that will come claiming to be the anointed one or unanointed one that will lead many astray. The word Christ, which is used in the Bible, is Greek, which simply means Messiah, which means anointed one. There are other instances in the Bible in which Messiah or anointed one are not in the context of Lord Jesus Christ. So Jesus wasn't saying that many would come claiming to be him. If you get a translation that isn't made by the Nicolaitans, Jesus said many would come claiming to be anointed and lead many people astray. Well, how many people in history have come claiming to be Jesus, and how many people have they led astray? Very few, and the ones that have always been considered to be in poor mental health. They haven't led many people astray, and there haven't been many of them. What there has been many of is bishops, priests, pastors, and popes that have led many people astray throughout the centuries. But now it is more dangerous than ever to be following a pastor or a priest. Okay. So, the Saints won Super Bowl 44, and the roof fire of the Saints Stadium, which sits at the church, was exactly 44 months after the Antichrist Star of Bethlehem, the humanity star with its humanism philosophy designed to promote that, okay, and that was January 21st, 2018, and that was exactly 40 weeks, because that's the length of term of a birth. It was an Antichrist Star of Bethlehem, before Trump tweeted about the Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher number 44, Rich Hill, having been pulled too early from the Game 4 of the World Series, on the same day that 4 police officers were wounded in the synagogue shooting in the rich neighborhood of Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, which was 444 days after the Revelation 12 sign was fulfilled in the night sky, which is the sign of the second coming, a parallel with the sign of the first coming, the Star of Bethlehem. Okay. The fire next to Dodger Stadium and the White House video about the fire on the I-10 is why God pointed to the 21st of September, 2024, ahead of time, through Earth, Wind, and Fire's hit song September, which has the lyric, "Do you remember the 21st day of September?" Okay, so I explained in the other videos how that is a prophetic sign. The release of that song was the same day as the Jonestown suicide murder massacre, and on and on. Okay, God pointed to September 21st, 2024, ahead of time through the connections from this song in Jonestown. And that's why, as expected, on the day of September 21st, we received these fire signs. Again, the fire next to Dodger Stadium, and the White House video about Kamala Harris at the I-10 and trumpeting the reopening of it after the terrible fire Okay, speaking of the number 110 here, as has been explained, that connected to September 21st, the prophetic signs on September 21st regarding the I-10 highway. Jimmy Carter's funeral is predicted to be on October 1st, 10-1, which is hinted at with 110, or it hints at 110. Okay, and Carter will have his funeral in the National Cathedral on his 100th birthday. Okay, this is why the date 10-1, which hints at 110, because actually outside of the US, this date is written as 110, not 10-1. So this is why Carter's predicted funeral, will be on 10-1, exactly 85 weeks after the funeral of the 36-year term mayor of Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, that was held on her 101st birthday. In fact, that date was declared to be Hazel McCallion Day before she even died, because of the reverence for this particular mayor. They had already made it Hazel McCallion Day, and then her funeral ended up being on that day, her 101st birthday. Okay? Now, 101 not only hints at 110, but it also hints at the Mayflower, the spiritual founding of America, in which 101 passengers arrived. Which is why, by the way, in the newly released images of the Titanic in 2023, we can see now the big serial number on the propeller of the Titanic, which is 101. And that is because the Titanic is a prophetic sign from God, a warning of judgment for America way back then, that pointed to the spiritual founding of the Mayflower's crossing of the Atlantic. The hubris of the unsinkable ship sank on its maiden voyage, and its serial number, the number that symbolizes it, is 101, and that's because of the Mayflower and its 101 passengers. Also, 101 is the 26th prime number, and the number 26 is the equivalent in Hebrew gematria of the name God in the Bible, the name of God in the Bible. Okay, so back to what I was saying here. Carter's funeral is predicted to be exactly 85 weeks on his 100th birthday, after the prophetic mayor of Mississauga's funeral on her 101st birthday. And 85, because this is a number that symbolizes Jimmy Carter, because Jimmy Carter is symbolism for the prophecy regarding the 5th through 8th kings. He began a chronology of 7 presidents, a series of 7 presidents that began in 77 when he was inaugurated. The 7th of the 7 presidents is Trump, who on his inauguration in a year that ended with 7, he was exactly 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. And on, okay? And so, the 5th through 8th kings. Now, anyway, this mayor presided over the Exodus, the biggest migration of people in North America in the 20th century. She presided over this Exodus from Montreal to Mississauga, down which the 2 cities in Canada are connected by the King's Highway, Highway 401. Now that's astounding because, well, in the Bible, the king of Egypt is symbolic of the Antichrist, and the number 400 is symbolic of the king of Egypt, because in the Bible it says that the Israelites were afflicted for 400 years. All right? But it's Highway 401, and it took me a long time, and only it occurred to me recently why it's the Highway 401. I knew that it was hinting at the Highway 400, but why 401? Well, I now know. It is the 22nd superprime number. The number 22 in God's signs is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, which is an example of oppressive minority laws. Those who refuse the mark of the Antichrist will be restricted from buying and selling food, as Bible prophecy tells us. But the exodus from Montreal to Mississauga was a result of the oppressive minority law, unprecedented in supposedly the free Western world, and it was Bill 101. Bill 101 restricted Anglophones, and Montreal was founded by Anglophones. The island of Montreal, the city of Montreal, was built by English-speaking people, but they passed a law, Bill 101, in the late 1970s that prevented or restricted people from posting any signage anywhere in their store, whether it be on a menu or on the store front, in the window, anywhere, in English. It all had to be in French. Okay? That's an oppressive minority law. So a lot of Anglophones, because Montreal before then was the biggest city in Canada, and then they all moved to the Toronto area, mostly to Mississauga, the suburb next to Toronto. Okay, and this mayor and so that's why she died at the age of 101, because she presided over this massive growth in Montreal during the time that she first became mayor. And then she was mayor for 36 years, which is symbolic of the Antichrist as well, because it hints at 3 6s, 666, the number of the Antichrist, but also 6 times 6, and 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, and the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way to 36 equals 666. Well, Hazel McCallion, her nickname was Hurricane Hazel because of the hurricane that was prophetic that hit Toronto and killed 81 people. Not long before she became the mayor. It was 1954, I believe. And so anyway, 81 is a 9/11 number because 9 divided by 11 is 0.8181 into infinity, and there were 81 passengers on the first flight that hit the first tower. And the towers were 110 stories, which 101 hints at, Bill 101. Well, anyway, she became mayor shortly before the train derailment. This was the biggest evacuation in North American history. The biggest emergency evacuation. When this train carrying toxic material exploded in a massive explosion. I forget how many feet high the explosion, but it could be seen, I believe, from across the lake, Lake Ontario, from what I recall. Obama, in a state dinner when he hosted the Prime Minister of Canada, mentioned Mississauga 3 times as he was trying to pronounce it and made a joke. All right? And after the joke, after he was done with his attempt to pronounce Mississauga, where he ate dinner, he said, and then we went to Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls is symbolism of Noah's flood and judgment, destruction. Okay, and the restaurant that he ate at was, I forget the name of it. It was a Chinese restaurant. He said it. And I don't know if he said the name of the restaurant, actually, but I looked it up. And it's a name that means high place. It's like high mountain or something like that. Mountain view, or I don't know. But his name in Hebrew means high place, which in the Bible is a euphemism for the false religious worship that the Jews would conduct on the tops of mountains, high place. Okay, so anyway, this is all relevant to me because I think God designed it that I'd be the one to tell this story, because I was born in Mississauga, and my earliest memory is of the Exodus due to the train derailment. This is one of my earliest memories. And this is all and much, much more is explained in the East Palestine video, because the East Palestine train derailment, which also pointed to the movie that was about the same subject of a train derailment and actually used extras from East Palestine because it was filmed nearby, coincidentally, designed by God, not designed by the Illuminati for the conspiracy theorists listening. This was a prophetic sign by God, and it all pointed to the train because the movie White Noise is a time movie where it takes place in the early 80s, because it is actually really inspired by the train derailment in Mississauga, which happened in 1979, at the end of the 1979. So basically, the early 1980s. And so anyway, there you have this story here too. The reason for going into all of this is because we've already gone into the subject of the number 110, and it's now known that Carter's funeral will be on a date that hints at that. And to tell that would be to also needs to tell this story that points to the Bill 101 and the mayor who also had her funeral on her 101st birthday. Almost forgot. On the day of her funeral and her 101st birthday, there was a prophetic sign, an evacuation from the I-10 in the 48th state, because the Antichrist is the future 48th president. And a portion of the I-10 was shut down because of a toxic spill. A truck crashed and a toxic waste was on the highway, and so nearby residents were told to evacuate, and the highway was shut down, and this was the I-10. And you know what? It also relates to me because I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, where this took place. I lived in Mississauga and Tucson, and these two places came together on this same day, which, by the way, was February 14th, 2023. Okay, and so, yeah, we have a prophetic sign involving the I-10 that connects with exactly 85 weeks to the date 10-1, which outside the U.S. is written as 110. And it involves Hazel McCallion, who died at the age of 101. It's amazing. And the reason for these evacuation signs and toxic waste signs, and I'm not even describing any of it. You need to watch the East Palestine video. It's one of the most amazing videos on this channel. Make sure you watch it, and I mean that seriously. And but the reason for all of this is because God is communicating the upcoming emergency evacuation of Manhattan Island. That's why Montreal Island in the Exodus. It's pointing to Manhattan Island ultimately, and the coming detonation explosions of dirty bombs, the toxic waste. Dirty bombs will cause a mass evacuation from Manhattan Island. And the Lord is pointing to September 26th regarding this, but I know how his signs works, and it could just be a step in the trail. I'm leaning toward it being a step in the trail because I can't really see how that emergency is going to happen 2 days before Kamala Harris is going to die in a plane crash on the 28th. And then the funeral, because the funeral needs to take place because that will be a prophetic sign. So I actually think it'll be a step. But if I'm wrong, it's because the dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan on September 26th. Correction, the date that God is pointing to regarding the coming dirty bombs in Manhattan is September 27th. But again, I think it will more than likely be a step in the trail of signs, which means we'll receive prophetic signs on this date related to this, and they will in turn reveal more information regarding when exactly this will occur. On the same day as the funeral for the mayor of Mississauga on her 101st birthday was the shutdown of the I-10, which hinted at 110, and evacuation in the 48th state, which hints at the future 48th president and Antichrist Barack Obama, due to a toxic spill from a truck that crashed and caught on fire. President Trump is Trump is the symbolic seventh king in the parallel with the prophecy regarding the 5th through 8th kings. Trump is also symbolic of Joshua in the Bible, who died at the age of 110 after leading around the walls of security of ancient Jericho, which is why Trump is predicted to die on 10/1, written as 110 outside the US, which hints at 110, on the day of Carter's funeral, exactly 85 weeks after that, which hints at the 5th through 8th king's prophecy, in which Trump is the 7th king. Exactly 85 weeks, Trump's predicted funeral on the date 110, which hints at 110, exactly 85 weeks after the death of the mayor of Mississauga on her 101st, which was also the day of the prophetic sign on the I-10, which hints at 110, near the U.S. border wall of security, which is a parallel with the book of Joshua and the walls of security of Jericho that collapsed in God's judgment, which is why Trump's election campaign and presidency were synonymous with his border wall of security. Before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment, the Israelites blew trumpets. It's a bit random, but I need to put this video into the video somewhere. The 5 kids that were assaulted by Michael Jackson, or at least alleged to have been assaulted, is symbolism for the assault from the things, the pointy things. And again, Michael Jackson died from a pointy thing. So I didn't really know if I made that clear enough. That's why this story on September 21st is about the kids that were assaulted by Michael Jackson. It's because of this, what God is communicating through Michael Jackson and Jimmy Carter and their meeting and the immunization of kids, etc. It's communicating the horrendous, wicked, evil thing that happened when kids were given this thing, the CVD thing, the mark of the Antichrist. Here is another sign that was on Saturday, September 21st. Okay, the stock market was closed on Saturday, September 21st. So we had stock market numbers that were frozen from the previous day. The S&P 500, which by the way hints at G500, the word in Strong's Greek concordance that is the word for Antichrist. The S&P 500 number from Friday's close was a loss of 11.09 points. Okay, this is a classic way that God would communicate a sign in the stock market. This is clearly a pairing of 9 and 110 that God uses, pairs together to point to the warning of judgment on 9/11. Just for example, it was 110 stories that collapsed. 9 from the Bible is the number that symbolizes God's judgment. But also, trumpet, God's trumpet, called into Channel 9 News on 9/11 and trumpeted how his tower on Wall Street, as in the walls of security collapsing in Jericho, in the book of Joshua in the Bible, trumpeted how his tower on Wall Street had become the tallest tower in lower Manhattan. It was a trumpeting. Anyway, take my word for it, if that wasn't enough, God pairs 9 and 110 together to confirm his signs and connections. This is a prophetic sign. Furthermore, though, this loss of 11.09 points was 0.19% loss. And that also hints at 9/11. It furthermore hints at Isaiah chapter 9, verse 10, which God pointed to on 9/11. He pointed to Isaiah chapter 9, 10 through 11, because 19 is 10 plus 9. Well, so anyway, this is a pairing of 9 and 110 that symbolizes the warning of judgment on 9/11. This sign was confirmation of the I-10 signs Again, the I-10 signs are hinting at 110, and therefore the 110 stories of the towers on 9/11. So this sign was a confirmation of the I-10 signs on September 21st, like I have been explaining in this video. Okay, so we had a stock market sign on this day because the stock market was closed on a Saturday, and it was reading this. If you looked up the stock market numbers on that day, September 21st, this is the number you would have seen. And that coincides, matches the signs we received on September 21st with the I-10 highway signs. Okay? And so September 20th, the Friday, when the stock market closed with this loss of 11.09 points, September 20th was 9 days after the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Okay, this is a pairing of 9 and 23 that God frequently pairs together. So if I haven't said yet in this video, if I have already, I apologize, but this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required, and this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 23. And I know this because I've been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 6 years. The reason for 9 and 23 is because God reveals the Antichrist through his signs, and the Antichrist became the president in 2009 and is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. Okay, so that's why 9 and 23. And so 9/20 was 9 days after the 23rd anniversary, the extremely prophetic 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Also, 9/11 in 2024 was 36 months, which is at 666, 3 sixes, and also 6 times 6, and also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way to 36 equals 666. And so 9/11 in 2024 was also 36 months after the prophetic 20th anniversary of 9/11. 20 years because in the Bible, 20 years symbolizes a complete period. A period of waiting, for example, in the Bible, and God was waiting 20 years to see if America would repent and turn back to God, which it didn't, which is why on the 20th anniversary of 9/11 was the emergency evacuation, just like there was an emergency evacuation of Lower Manhattan and the collapse of the towers. This was the emergency evacuation of Afghanistan when U.S. security collapsed in Afghanistan. That's why. And Afghanistan was obviously, of course, a result of 9/11. And that's why there was an emergency evacuation and collapse of the security in Afghanistan 20 years after the emergency evacuation and the collapse of the towers in Manhattan on 9/11. And furthermore, Afghanistan was because of 9/11. Okay, and this was a prophetic sign that pointed to the collapse of the 110-story towers 20 years earlier. The iconic scene from the collapse of Afghanistan was the cargo plane taking off on the runway in Kabul, with men falling to their deaths after hanging onto the plane. And I'll show an image of this. You've seen it before. It's the iconic image on the runway with Afghani men running after the plane, the big cargo U.S. military plane. And anyway, them hanging onto the plane and then falling to their deaths was a parallel with the men falling to their deaths and jumping out of the windows of the towers on 9/11 20 years earlier. The big serial number on the plane, on the side of the plane, in the iconic image, is 1109, which is a pairing of 110 and 9 that points to 9/11. In other words, through this prophetic sign and this iconic image and the men falling from the plane, God was pointing to the men that fell because of planes into the towers on 9/11 because God pairs 110 and 9 together, like I said. That's why this stock market sign on 9/20 was a loss of 11.09, 23 years and 9 days after 9/11. So I'll just show you an image here now. Here is the iconic image from the collapse of Afghanistan on the anniversary of the collapse of the 110-story towers. You can see here the serial number is 1109. This is the way God communicates 9/11. Like I am saying, He pairs 9 and 110 together. That's amazing, and that's why on September 21st, the stock market number was a loss of 11.09. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.